Hello there, it's been a minute, but thankfully welcome to today's edition of The State here on Wesleyan Television. My name is 𝗬𝗓𝗏𝗂𝗓, and as we always do, we pick relevant issues on the train of public discourse and we give it an analysis that is fair, dispassionate and truthful. And this afternoon would not be any exception. We take a breather. When we come back, the fine details don't go anywhere.
The Christian Service University, a fully chartered private university in Ghana, is inviting applications for admission. Undergraduate programs include BSc Nursing and Midwifery, Computer Science, Information Technology, Bachelor of Business Administration, BA Communication Studies, Planning and Social Development, and Theology with Administration. Postgraduate programs include MSc in Accounting and Finance, Monitoring and Evaluation, Corporate Planning and Governance. We have MA MPhil Communication Studies, MA Christian Ministry with Management, Event Management, MPhil English and Mathematics Education. With quality, faculty and state-of-the-art facilities, we blend academic work with entrepreneurial mindset in all our programs. For more information, please call 0246-275375, 0240-154825, or 0244-596603, or visit our website www.csuc.edu.gh. CSU is located at Odenaho Kwadaso on the Kumasi-Obuasi Road, 100 meters off Star Junction. Choose CSU today to secure the future of Africa.
And to make him better known.
Ghana for Mama Dada yo, but the dead number. Dead spices are running in every just and you never know yet.
If we come your job away, no use dead spices. We don't go job. I don't
Taste the inside. Yeah, the natural spices, Papa Pana.
The way you go, dead spices.
Just the one.
No more dead spices. Aji baby,
Black, tasting a chicken.
Kaji, go. But dead spices, here what Jenny say. Then good taste. If we say, yeah, the natural spices and yeah, you're gonna hey yo. Annie, you want all-purpose, stew, noodles, curry and nutmeg, and a jollof. Dead spices, taste yummy, taste lemon. Dead spices, taste gay inside. FDIG, a jedi in Kratoya.
All right, thanks for staying with us. This is The State here on Wesleyan Television. My name is 𝗬𝗓𝗏𝗂𝗓𝗏𝗏, and I'm glad that we are able to serve you another installment of the show. Now, back in junior high school, if you were very studious, and indeed if you were taking your social studies classes very seriously, then you will agree with me that precisely we have three arms of government, namely the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. But apart from these three designated institutions, there is also the media, which has variously and often been described as the fourth estate of the realm. Now, what is the role of the media, of which I happen to be a part anyway? The role of the media is captured in the Constitution, but generally the media serves as that integral organ that holds office holders to the fire of accountability. So anybody who is in the press, apart from the traditional roles of educating, supplying information and informing the general public, the press is also supposed at every given point to call duty bearers to order, if you like. And that is why at every given point, pundits and connoisseurs of leadership have consistently advocated that there must be a certain connection and nexus between those who hold office and the press. And last night, the former President of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, undertook such an interaction. Indeed, he met scores of journalists at the 𝗟𝗓𝗄𝗃 hotel here in Accra, and it was quite an interaction. I was there. I was privileged to be part of that discourse. And this afternoon, we're going to delve into some of the topical issues that came up in the course of that particular exchange. Don't forget, as always, this show is proudly brought to you by the Christian Service University. They maintain that they are your prime institution where tertiary education is concerned. We take a breather. When we come back, I'm going to introduce my guest, and then we get into the thrust of the conversations. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Sorry, not sure.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Get ready for a transformational morning experience.
Sorena Shrine is here to build our spirituality, mental and physical well-being.
Through positive, inspiring actions and stories.
We bring you exciting activities and conversations that develop us as a people and as a nation.
We take a look at the trending issues in Ghana and the rest of the world.
And we also review the impacting stories from our local newspapers.
Every morning, we bring you stories of hope, change, and renewal.
We empower you through the Word of God and provoke you to live the purposeful life destined for you.
Join us, Anita Kwaku
and the Reverend 𝗟𝗑𝗩𝗘 Monday to Friday from 5:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. as we take you on an inspiring journey, live and exclusively on WTV.
You may also join us on Facebook at WTV Ghana and on YouTube at Wesleyan TV Ghana.
Sorry, not Shrine.
Wake up to a purposeful day.
Sorena Shrine is brought to you by
Danwell Insurance, Multi-Credit Savings and Loans,
and the Methodist University Ghana.
There is always a story on the train of national discourse, a host of thorny issues begging intelligent analysis and unbiased scrutiny. But how do we interrogate these matters? Through the regular lens of partisanship or through a spectrum that focuses on the national good? The answer is the latter, and that is why the state is here. Here on the state, we turn our backs on the political gimmicks, ignoring the endless propaganda and opening our doors to honest and critical assessments on all matters of national interest. Our focus is to generate compelling solutions to the litany of problems in education, politics, health, governance, the economy, and all other areas of national life. We also bring you closer to the narratives on the streets, bringing you up to speed with the voices of ordinary men and women who cannot be heard. It's a platform of truth, objectivity, and impactful Christian-centered engagement designed to better the lot of all and sundry. Join me, 𝗟𝗪𝗘𝗃, this on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Wesleyan TV for this all-new current affairs program. For sponsorship, please call 059-311-0733 or 025-625-3461. The State, probing the issues, digging the solutions.
Wesleyan TV, reaching out to the world.
All right, thanks for your time, and we're grateful that you're able to join us for this afternoon's edition of The State here on Wesleyan Television. As always, the conversations on this platform are devoid of any partisan or political undertones. What we seek to do on any given day, given the opportunity to interact with you, is to pick very relevant issues and attempt to dissect and dilate them with the generality of the populace in mind. If we are biased towards any cause whatsoever, clearly our bias is towards the good of the ordinary Ghanaians, and we are not sure that we are ever going to depart from that mandate. Now, this afternoon, like I earlier indicated, we're going to have a conversation that focuses on last night's interaction where the former president of the Republic, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, had a very interesting, I should say, interaction with members of the press, journalists for that matter. Now, why is that conversation important? Greatly, earlier I was saying that you realize that if you look at the arms of government, there is the executive, there is the judiciary, and then there is the lawmaking outfit, which happens to be the legislature. All of these structures exist to drive the developmental narrative of this beloved republic called Ghana. But those who occupy various portfolios in all of these structures have to answer to the public. Those who go to them and derive the answers are journalists like myself, are reporters. And when we talk about journalists, we are not even talking about or focusing on limelight broadcasters or those who are on television, radio, and other if you like, explicit platforms. Producers are part of the journalistic fraternity. Indeed, camera operators and everybody who is connected with the business of disseminating information either to drive a cause or who is involved in the cause of entertaining the public, the mass public, providing information and entertainment and education may as well be characterized as a journalist. Now, the persons in this particular sector are important, like I've already intimated, and therefore at any given point, it's relevant for office holders to interact with them. And that is why yesterday, the former president's interaction with the press at the 𝗟𝗓𝗡𝗬𝗓 Hotel has been described widely by many as a very useful venture. And we're going to delve into certain relevant aspects of that particular conversation. To help me do the conversation are two individuals. They would not be joining us in studio. They would be joining us virtually. Major Albert Don Chebe is the name I have here. Chebe is the former Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, a man who understands the rubrics and the nuances of media and the press at large. Major, good afternoon. We are happy that you're able to connect with us this afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'm really excited to be part of this discussion.
Right. It's a pleasure. And we'll also be joined by 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗘𝗏𝗓𝗓𝗏𝗓𝗏 Evelyn is the Executive Vice President of the Head of Programs at the African Center for Digital Transformation. She's joining us all the way from Germany. She's not in our local jurisdiction. Evelyn, good afternoon and thanks for your time.
Good afternoon, Shandov. It's nice to be here.
Right. Thank you. It's a privilege as well. We're grateful to have both of you to help us do this all-important discussion. I want to pick your preliminary thoughts on presidents or heads of states interacting with the press. It is not one of those things that a lot of presidents like to embrace. Indeed, there are some leaders who do not like the spotlight of accountability and scrutiny. Forgive me. There are some leaders who normally would want to shy away from the press and probing questions. And so for the former president to have opened himself out to randomized questions, organic interrogations, we may as well characterize it as a good trait of leadership and democracy at large. But what are your preliminary thoughts on the former president's interaction with the press last night? I want to start with you, Major.
Thank you for the opportunity. Honestly, I was thrilled to see the former president avail himself and also give the press the opportunity to address a lot of the issues that are being out in the public and that many people are unsure about in respect of where the parties stand. And it was a refreshing interaction to see a prominent Ghanaian politician opened himself out to all the most prominent media personalities to throw any question whatsoever without any manipulation. I was really excited, and I believe that this is the standard that we should ask for from all other political operators, particularly at the level of those speaking our mandate to be our ultimate leader in this country.
All right, that point is well noted. Evelyn, let me come to you. You are not in our local jurisdiction. I understand that you are all the way in Germany, but because of how connected the world is, I'm sure that you observed the proceedings. Even if you did not, I want to believe that you've seen snippets on social media. If you've not, again, I'll be very much disappointed. But by and large, what have been your impressions about the former president's interaction with the press? I mean, as had happened last night.
Okay, thank you very much. Ghana is a democratic country, and in the lead up to elections, I think the public would want to know what are the policies, what's the manifesto of every presidential candidate. So what Mr. Mahama did was a step in the right direction, because voters would want to weigh which policies, would serve the cause of Ghana. So it was very interesting I had a peep into some of the issues he raised. And I think that this was a step in the right direction. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Evelyn. Evelyn maintains that it was a step in the right direction. Before we proceed, we'll come back to that later on, but I would express my comments on, my impressions about the event as well. But before we proceed, I want us to look at one of the topical issues that came up during the conversation. And Major, I would need your opinions strongly on this. The president of the Ghana Journalists Association, indeed, he was given the opportunity to ask the very first question for the day, given that he's the leader of the Ink fraternity here in Ghana. And in his questions, he raised concerns about the remuneration of journalists, how that journalists across the country are poorly, underwhelmingly compensated. The president did not make any definite assurances and promises, but he did indicate the plans of his government to roll out a media endowment fund in addition to other, if you like, mechanisms to make sure that the safety of journalists and their welfare is grossly protected. For you, who I'm sure because of your GBC experience, you've engaged the media for a very long time, do you think we have come to that point in our national life where all of us should collectively come out and say that, look, we have to even set a cap for how much journalists earn, given their contribution to national life, development, and public discourse?
Journalism has always been a very thorny subject. And I believe that it is a thorny subject because it is an area where, for reality purposes, is unregulated. Even though I was in charge of GBC and we had our challenges, I would say that in respect of many journalists, they operate in the private sector. And so I really could not see how much a president could contribute in that direction, in the sense that he cannot pact or promise that I'm going to create a certain special, wage structure for journalists. How is that going to be implemented? Because the journalist is working in the private area, he's employed, his employer has his salary range, he has his issue in respect of what he's even making a profit.
Right.
And so it's a difficult area. We all understand the importance of the journalism profession, but in respect of remuneration, it is very similar to, let's say, lawyers. One cannot degree how much lawyers should earn. Some of them are in public service, some are in private practice. And your worth is how you are perceived by clients and the public. And I believe that it is somehow similar to journalism. If you are perceived doing the journalism to the satisfaction of your stakeholders, viewers, the readers, and the general public, obviously you'll be able to demand a certain level of remuneration. On the other hand, if your work is unremarkable, you would also have your level that you probably would not be satisfied. So I think on the issue of remuneration, because of the free market, it's difficult for one to be able to determine that this is how journalists will be, and nobody should pay a journalist below that salary.
Right.
And so I think that we handled that question very well, but the question itself is not an easy question to manage.
All right. Still staying on the subject, I mean, we'll touch on some specifics very soon, but given your exposure to public relations and your understanding of media interactions at large, I'm inclined to put this question to you. Now, this is my opinion that I published on Facebook. I'm only going to read an aspect of my opinion, and I'm roping your comments in that particular respect. I did indicate that I fell in love with the eloquence of the president all over again. And even though good speeches may not build a nation, it's great to hear a leader who knows his stuff. I was particularly intrigued about the way the former president responded to questions on his feet and his mastery and appreciation of the issues. Even though he's not been in office, it appears that he has quite a good memory and an overwhelming and overarching capture of events in the past and even developments in the now. From a PR perspective, having watched him, do you think that he scored full points in that particular respect as well, as many are praising widely on social media?
Honestly, I believe that the former president positioned himself very well. And I'm not surprised, I'm not astonished. This is a gentleman who is a fellow of the Institute of Public Relations, who is well versed in the practice, the arts, and the science of public relations. And therefore, you can see that his public interaction has always been above board, with a very good demeanor and great command of language. And so I'm not surprised at all that he came across very well. It was a very refreshing interview, and I pray and hope that all the others who are lining up to be our leaders will also take the opportunity to come onto platforms where all of us as Ghanaians, represented by our media practitioners, can put direct questions to them and let them look us in the eye and respond. And that is exactly what the former president did yesterday, and I will thank him for that courage.
All right, that's fine. Let me come to you, Evelyn. If you were to, based on what you have watched, the excerpts that you say you've been exposed to, if you were to assess the demeanor of the president and his response to questions as well, how would you rate him if you were to rate him at all?
Okay, thank you very much. That's such a huge position to rate the former president. But I think that, as I earlier mentioned, we are preparing towards an election. So the whole world is watching the NDC flag bearer. So it's expedient that he answers the questions correctly, in an apt manner such that people would have some confidence in him, as that is if they would vote for him at all. So rating him, I think that his speech was clear. And then we also have a history of how he's always communicated, right from even when he was president. So on that level, I think it was okay.
All right. I want to stay with you more because there was a particular if you like, promise or policy that he teased, and I think it's relevant, and that has gotten to do with the unemployment crisis in the country. We all know that a lot of young people are living under very harsh conditions because a good number of them are not able to find jobs. But last night, the former president indicated that there are about some 300,000 jobs in the offing, especially in the digital arena, that would come to light if he's elected president. From where you sit at the African Center for Digital Transformation, how would you welcome, or how do you, if you like, see that particular comment from the president?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. We are gradually moving to the digital world, and we recognize that in the last few years, the current government, to begin with, has made certain strides with digitalization, and we also recognize that the NDC presidential candidate, that's Mr. Mahama, before he left office from 2016, also made some effort. So then, if someone promises you, if someone makes a promise to you, you are looking at what they've done before. And a notable example I could give is the completion of the Accra Digital Center under Prof. 𝗟𝗵𝗃𝗬𝗓 when he was the minister for MOCD. And this is one of the main points you can look at when it comes to Mr. Mahama's plea of saying that he would create 300,000 jobs in the digital space. Now, this looks like a very promising policy, but we should look at the implementation, as that has always been a problem. We've had several nice policies, they are good on paper, but then you're always asking yourself, how is the implementation like? So if you would allow me, I would like to raise a few comments on the implementation. The first one would be that since 2015, 2016, there has been a number of digital infrastructure that has been rolled out, both at the phasing stage of the NDC and also for the 8 years that the MPP has been in power. Now, we are saying that when Mr. Mahama comes to power, that is if he would come, he shouldn't start everything afresh. We are looking at policy continuation, and that has been one thing that lacks a lot in terms of transitioning of government. So one, he should continue with some of the existing digital projects that we have. The second thing is also defining a bit, because if you say you are going to create 300,000 jobs, it looks nice, but then when you say digital space, what are you looking at? Are you looking at rescaling people, upscaling people? Are we looking at, revolutionizing our education so that when people come out of the university, they're not looking at the regular white-collar jobs of sitting in the office, but then they're looking at how can I scale up? Because before these jobs would come, we would need the citizens who are skilled for these jobs. If these 3,000 jobs are created and the skills are not matching, we would have a huge problem. So these are some of the things that, Mr. Mahama can look of the scaling up. And we would also encourage, we as ACDs would encourage that they do like a needs assessment. What are the skills that are invoked now? And not just Ghana, but let's look at on the continent level. What are some of the digital trends that are emerging? Not just for 2024, but let's forecast a bit even to 2030, because there's been several research that have shown that the internet economy, or the ICT economy, if you would allow me, hold a major contribution to the GDP of the African continent by 2030. So this is something that we can key into, but we are saying that major steps should be taken so that in the end it doesn't look like a very beautiful, a very nice policy, but then it doesn't trickle down to even the grassroots. And then the youth who would really need these jobs, that is if it would be created at all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Evelyn, for your thoughts on the 300,000 digital jobs that the president indicated yesterday. Major, I'm now coming to you, but we're going to stay a bit more on some of the specifics. I happen to have asked a question on corruption. We do have the excerpt. I'm sure that in the course of time we may actually maybe play it for your hearing and that of our viewers as well. We're going to talk about corruption. Then I come to what were the major takeaways for you. The former president said that if he's elected, he's going to strengthen the office of the special prosecutor. So he doesn't have any plans of discarding it. He feels that it's a laudable initiative, except that it has to be granted the needed independence to be able to prosecute corruption-related offenses. What is your take on that? And give us two of your major takeaways from last night's interaction with the press.
Plans whatsoever to dismantle the office of the special prosecutor. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, we are too quick to expect results from newly established offices. We conveniently forget of the bureaucratic challenges that are endemic in our environment. And so persons normally expect an office to be set up and start delivering results when that office does not have complete control over the process for taking a person to court and then having the person convicted. In there, we have a very big area that is managed by another institution called the judiciary, which works at its two places. And I believe that the frustration with the lack of quote-unquote results from the OSP has led to this feeling that maybe that office, we expect too much from the office, and that office may not be able to fight, quote-unquote, again, corruption. And so once again, there was some satisfaction in the response of the former president when he intimated that apart from even maintaining the office probably will be strengthened and the office will be freed up. There is a perception that the office has got some fetters, it has been infected, and therefore it's not been able to operate freely. And I was happy to hear that office will be freed, more space will be provided for the office to operate in the manner that similar agencies in other African countries are operating and delivering results. And so the response was satisfactory. He hit the right notes. And we believe that if God blesses him, the sentiment that expressed yesterday would come into fruition.
Beyond that, what were your other takeaways from his submissions?
Honestly, many of the questions that were thrown to him were questions which were tricky and often slippery. But for some reason, yesterday he was on top of his game. And he was able, like you have expressed, he was able to speak not only generally, but he spoke into detail about many issues. I was particularly impressed with his response with regard to the constant charge that his party has not been able to deliver any social interventions. And his response was classic. In the first place, he defined social interventions and was able to list a long list of social interventions beginning from 1992 to the date and ending up with the fact that many of the social policies that we see implemented today took their roots from earlier policy decisions taken by former presidents, and in particular presidents from his side of Dubai. And so that was one of the issues that he tackled to my admiration. Apart from also dealing with the question about the Airbus, I thought he would, but he was able to ask the big question. If he is what do you call it, allegedly guilty, why have the authorities not taken him to court? If there is evidence, because the name of the game is evidence. If there is evidence that he is guilty for all the many charges that are thrown at him, he's been available to this country for the past 7.5 years. He's made himself open. He has been vilified in the media. However, nobody has taken him to court. And I was happy, and I expect all other presidential candidates to use this same platform to come and sit or stand in front of journalists, and be open to all questions, because we have several questions we want to ask those who want to lead us. But unfortunately, either they don't make themselves available or they hide behind all kinds of spokespersons to talk to us when we want to hear them directly, as has been done by the former president. So we urge the others to also come onto this platform, and let's put questions to them, look into their eyes, and watch their lips as they respond to our questions.
Right, that point again is well noted. But if you were part of the participants yesterday, what question specifically would you have asked, or what question were you expecting that maybe was not asked due to time?
Honestly, I was satisfied with all the questions asked. But many times a question would pop into my head, and then the next person who raises his hand asks that question. Just like there were a few journalists in the gathering who were asked to take their hands, and then they would get up and say, "Oh, the question I wanted to ask has just been asked." And I think I was in that. I'm in that group of listeners and viewers, in the sense that many of the questions that agitated in my mind were correctly and truthfully asked, but the journalists assembled, and so in a way, they took the questions out of my mouth.
All right, that point is again well noted. We want to take a breather here. When we come back, we're going to delve into another aspect of the conversation that I think everybody is interested in, the subject of corruption. We asked a question. We asked the former president how he's going to handle that matter, and he gave a response that was quite intriguing. When we come back, we're going to explore that. But do stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Christian Service University, a fully chartered private university in Ghana, is inviting applications for admission. Undergraduate programs include BSc Nursing and Midwifery, Computer Science, Information Technology, Bachelor of Business Administration, BA Communication Studies, Planning and Social Development, and Theology with Administration. Postgraduate programs include MSc in Accounting and Finance, Monitoring and Evaluation, Corporate Planning and Governance. We have MA MPhil Communication Studies, MA Christian Ministry with Management, Event Management, MPhil English and Mathematics Education. With quality, faculty and state-of-the-art facilities, we blend academic work with entrepreneurial mindset in all our programs. For more information, please call 0246-275375, 0240-154825, or 0244-596603, or visit our website www.csuc.edu.gh. CSU is located at Odenaho Kwadaso on the Kumasi Obuasi Road, 100 meters off Star Junction. Choose CSU today to secure the future of Africa.
And to make him better known. That's
Ghana for Mama don't you? Let the dead number. Dead spices are running in every Jackson. And you never know yet.
If we come your job, we no use dead spice. We no go job. I don't
Taste the inside. Yeah, the natural spices, Papa Pa na.
Noodles Everywhere you go, Dedo spices.
Just the
one. No more Dedo spices. Aji baby, Dedo.
The Lord tasting a chicken.
𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗃. But Dedo spices here what Jenny say. Nanya good taste. If we say yeah the natural spices and yeah you gonna hey yo. Annie, you want all purpose stew, noodles, curry and nutmeg and a jollof. Dedo spices. Taste yummy, taste lemon. Dedo spices. Taste day inside. FDIG a jedi in kratoya.
All right, we're coming to the closing. We've gotten to the closing members of this afternoon's conversation. And for those of you who are just joining us from home, this afternoon we are having a conversation that is focusing on last night's press encounter with the former president of the Republic, His Excellency 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗓. He is lacing his boots to become Ghana's leader, by the way. But yesterday he outlined some of his policies, and journalists across the country asked very tough and biting questions. We've been exploring the merits of that interaction and some of the relevant fallouts of that particular discourse. We've been doing this in the company of Major 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗘. He's the former Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and he's indeed a very astute legal practitioner. 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗘 is the Executive Vice President of the head of programs at the African Center for Digital Transformation. She's also been part of the conversation, joining us all the way from Germany. In this last leg of the conversation, we want to talk about corruption, like I said we would, because it's one of the biggest issues, if you ask me, the biggest ill that always derails our fortunes and development as a country. Yesterday, the president responded to a question that I actually posted that question to him about how he's going to deal with corruption, given the fact that in some time past, a section of the populace felt that he was very lenient, especially because his boss, the late Professor Mills, equally was lenient when it came to the fight against corruption. If we have that tape, I'm sure we'll play it, but if we do not have it, I want to come to you, Major, to pick your thoughts on this. Last night, the former president said that he is not only going to go after past officials, because that is normally a low-hanging fruit. He indicated that he would actually shine the light on his own appointees, such that if they fall foul of the law and they are engaged in corrupt practices, he would not be a clearing agent. Do you think that is possible in our political architecture? A sitting president having his own appointees prosecuted without any interruptions?
Well, you would agree with me that in recent times our political economic environment has changed a bit, in the sense that with the coming of the office of the special prosecutor, an instrument or a certain infrastructure has been set in place to be able to deal with corruption in a more targeted manner than in the past, when this office did not exist. You realize that the office is inundated with a lot of corruption cases. And I believe the reason why they probably have not made much headway is because of the fact that the establishment is unable to cope with the load. Okay?
Major, I wanted to pause your thoughts. Major, I wanted to pause your thoughts briefly for me, because we want to play that particular question that we posed to him on the matter of corruption. Evelyn, if you can hear us, I want you to equally pay attention, because this is what we are discussing on for the very last part of the conversation. Here it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be going for the second round. 𝗟𝗓𝗪𝗘, my good brother 𝗏𝗏 is also here. So kindly bring the microphone here. 𝗏𝗏, bring the microphone to the front. The man in that colorful bow tie, yes.
Good evening, Mr. President. My name is 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗘. I work with Wesleyan Television. This is my question. When the NDC won the 2008 elections, they were caused by a section of the party, and indeed, the party's founder for the government of the day to be tougher on past corrupt officials. But it appeared that under the impression of Father for All, your late boss, Professor Mills, was lenient, and indeed you've also been accused of that same leniency, if I have to put it that way. But years down the line, I'm inclined to ask, have you delivered yourself from that spirit of leniency? And, and if you have, what are the first 3 allegations of corruption that you would probe if elected? I mean, on my paper, there's a plethora of them, but in your books, what are the first 3 that you would probe?
Thank you very much. Let's go to the middle lane. Ms. Ami here.
Good evening, Mr. President. I am 𝗟𝗵𝗲𝗘, and I work with the EIB network.
And then you asked, have I exercised myself of the Father for All, the Father for All syndrome? My boss, my president, was a special person. He several times said he believed in looking forward and not looking into the past. And so I'm sure that people got away with some of the crimes that they had committed against the people. I became president 4 years later, after President Mills had done his 4 years. I mean, I came into office 5 months before the election. And so when I became president, it was going to be a bit difficult to be investigating things that happened in 2008. And so I said that, look, any allegations of corruption that are made against any public officer, I give the investigative agencies the free hand to investigate. And so I remember in those times, the National Service investigation, the 𝗟𝗑𝗓 scandal, people even forget that I was the one who commissioned the committee of inquiry into 𝗟𝗑𝗓. And all the issues that came up, the report was presented to me as president, and I gave the report to the media. And that is referred back to me as my crime of condoning corruption. The fight against corruption begins with shining sunlight into an area, and that is what I sought to do. And so when we gave the 𝗟𝗓𝗓 report to you guys, it was referred to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General began to take action. Some of the people involved went to court to restrain the Attorney General, and the court processes took forever. There were others where there was prosecution of my own colleague and friend, 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗘. The Attorney General put him before court, and he was jailed. It was recently that President Akufo-Addo granted him amnesty. And so the will to fight corruption was there. We even retrieved monies from some of those involved in 𝗟𝗓𝗓. We retrieved as much as 50 million Ghana cedis at the time. And so the track record is there. And I can assure you, if you believe that I was imbued with the Father for All syndrome, it has been exercised. And it's been exercised.
Well, so that was the former president indicating that he's no longer under the syndrome of Father for All. And if it's because of time, we are not able to play the full tape. But you would have heard him say emphatically that he's going to fight corruption in such a manner that even his appointees would also not be spared. So back to you, Major. You were indeed focusing. You were talking about you were making a point about that particular comment from the former president, and I'm inclined to know, do you think it is feasible in the very first place that a former president, I mean, he becomes president again if he gets the opportunity to be able to prosecute his own appointees under the circumstances?
Let me say that I was in fact building up that situation to explain that this was a president who, like he had said, was able to prosecute his own, top government officials jail them. And remember that this was a time when there was no right to the right to information. It wasn't there. And yet the president was freer. It was easier to investigate cases. Manasseh Azure, we don't know what work he did and how he was free enough to roam around Ghana with no fear whatsoever. And we know that the circumstances are not the same. And so I am inclined to believe that a president who was able to free institutions of state and private persons to conduct investigations, publish reports without any fear whatsoever, and who has, I would say, who will become more mature, who probably, like somebody said, was perceived as rather soft, and which is a very good human virtue. But under the circumstances of a country which has been bankrupted for various reasons, one would know that in the hardship that most Ghanaians are facing, the former president's leniency will not be taken kindly if you were to come and manifest those same characteristics as his boss. In fact, this was one of the reasons why the president, J.K. Rowling, fell out with his succeeding president, 𝗟𝗵𝗘𝗏, because Rowling complained that 𝗟𝗏 was not dealing with corruption in the manner that he probably expected. And I believe that the former president who is now running will take a lead from what had happened in the past, that he runs the danger of incurring the wrath of many members of his party and even Ghanaians sitting on the fence who are very, very unhappy about the state of and the alleged crimes that have taken place in this country of a financial nature, and who are expecting that more light, like he said, will be shown on the activities of those who have held power in the last 7.5 years. For all of us to come to an understanding whether our present financial economic circumstances are the result of external factors or were deliberately created by persons we have put our trust into to lead us into a better life.
Right.
So we are all probably waiting for an opportunity to see that the promises made in respect of a forensic audit of our finances in the last 7.5 years will come to pass. And so that we can then sleep peacefully to understand that it was not a deliberate policy implementation or deliberate actions that have brought us to this state in which poverty and hardship has become the life of the average Ghanaian.
Right. Right. Thank you very much. We're grateful for these comments. Clearly, we would have wanted to engage more, but time is not our friend this afternoon. Evelyn, I'm coming to you. You've been away. I mean, your opinions have been muted for a very long time. But having heard the president make that assurance or give that promise, he said it was not a threat anyway, and that is a promise that is going to deal decisively with the issue of corruption. How do you think that is going to accelerate development in the country and then touch to a sector that you are passionate about, the digital infrastructure of the country?
Thank you very much for that. I think most of the points have been raised by our initial speaker. I'm just going to add 2 points. The first one is the issue of corruption is a bit touchy. You know, people who may be involved tend to be very protective and defensive of any government or whatsoever that wants to fight it, you know. And if we check the terrain, almost every presidential candidate has had an element of they wanting to fight corruption. And sometimes you realize that there's always a lack in the implementation. So what I would suggest is that let's build institutions institutions that will fight corruption away from the human element, what's going to happen is that if you set structures in place, so let me just give a typical example. Let's say Mr. Mahama comes to power, and then there are very robust institutions to check that all of his appointees, everybody gets to know this was your asset before office, like you declared before office, and there is a monitoring system, not in a way that you cannot, operate, but then there's a monitoring system to ensure that you are not getting anything outside of what you are due. That would be on one part. When such institutions are set in place, what's going to do is that it's going to deter people who might want to look for the loopholes, and that's one side. Now, someone might say, but we already have institutions, but you and I know that it's very porous. So let's set robust institutions, and the idea of a robust institution to begin with would deter people. Now, if it doesn't deter people and people still want to, loot the government or loot the country, then the law goes after them. So when this happens, it takes away the human element that someone is going, quote unquote, witch hunting. If you are caught by the law deals with you. If the institution finds you wanted, it deals with you. So I think that I recognize what the presidential candidate is saying, that he's not going to abolish the special prosecutions, institute, but then he's going to strengthen it. Rightly so, let's strengthen it, and then make sure that all these loopholes that then drain the resources of the country elsewhere is closed. From there, I think that to fight corruption will not be as dangerous as it might be happening. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Evelyn, for those profound thoughts. Evelyn, I beg your pardon, is with the African Center for Digital Transformation. She is the Vice President and the head of programs of that particular outfit. She's been part of this afternoon's conversation. Major Albert Don, is it Chebe or Chebe? I'm not very sure. Forgive me if my pronunciation is not consistent. He is a former Director General, of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, and he too shared his views on this edition of the show. It's now time for us to log out, but just before we exit, 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗏 Selom, he's a keen watcher, actually a strong, if you like, patron of this particular platform, and he's been watching. We're extending our greetings in that particular respect. And away from 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗏, 𝗟𝗓𝗓𝗏 is celebrating her birthday today, and we are expressing our well wishes to her in that particular respect. Our prayer is that the good Lord will give her good health, fitness, vitality, and of course the top up of abundant prosperity in leaps and bounds. On that note, we log out. My name is 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂. Hopefully we'll come back again on Wednesday with another edition of the show. Until then, stay safe, stay good. The Lord be with you. It's been a pleasure serving you. Bye-bye.